Yes, welcome in. We are driving towards spring practice. It's a very slow drive. It is being stalled by snow and cold, but we are getting closer, somewhat closer to spring ball. We have a schedule, Jesse. We have a spring practice schedule. How excited are you?
I'm glad to know what's happening. I'm glad to know that it's less than 4 weeks away, and we are gonna have an opportunity to see a lot of football this spring and give everybody listening an opportunity to learn just like we do, because it's the 30% new roster here.
It is. And we will obviously, as we get closer to spring ball, which the first day will be March 13th, which is a Thursday. And they are obviously doing it on championship week, which is, I mean, that's per normal. And then, yeah, a couple practices the following week as well. And then they're taking a break. And then they'll be back after that, after spring break, I assume, is how that is all going to play out, which is very familiar. But you talked about all those new guys that are going to be taking the field, 30 plus new guys, I believe. And we have a chance. We had a chance to talk with one of them, and he's a pretty important one. His name is Billy Edwards Jr. He's the new quarterback, and we had a chance to talk with him a little bit earlier. And that interview's coming up here in just a minute. But I enjoyed talking to him. Here's the thing: there has been an up and down of quarterbacks and how much they enjoy talking to the media or just have something to say. And he definitely has something to say, and he's really really good. And then there's Jack Cohn, who didn't have a lot to say, but I think he's the exact opposite, is what I'm saying. I think, but which we tend to like the guys that are more like that are wanting to talk and all that good stuff. So we had a great conversation with him, and that's coming up here in just a minute. Before we get to it, though, there was a little bit of news earlier this week. It was Wisconsin adding a new GM, and it's a name that, while I think we may be familiar with it just because we've seen him around, maybe a lot of Badger fans are not necessarily familiar with it. His name is Marcus Sedberry. He's been at Wisconsin for a few years now as an assistant athletic director, but he spent a ton of time around Wisconsin football. Saw him at Luke Fickell's press conferences, both after games and on Mondays. So, and on the road as well. So traveling with him. So he's had a ton of experience around the team, but it is a little bit of a change from what Wisconsin had there before in Max Steinecker. And I know Max was there for, 5 months or 6 months in that role and really didn't truly take over that role until January 1st. But Marcus Sedberry, you had a chance to talk with him. I know you're going to be doing a story later on here, but what was your initial impression, or what was your initial reaction to that news and what it means for Wisconsin and its football program?
Well, the general manager is probably, not even arguably, the most important position you could have that's not an on-field position. Obviously, there are a lot of other really important spots, but that's the person who's going to be helping you managing the future of college football as it relates to revenue sharing and player personnel. And so, yes, when Luke talked about this decision, the most important, or one of the most important reasons, was Marcus's knowledge of this program. That was so crucial for Luke in making this decision, because he's been around the players, the coaches, and even before he became general manager, he spent the last year or so helping to implement a plan of attack for how Wisconsin was going to handle this revenue sharing process, which has not become official because a judge still needs to rule on that. But that is the assumption moving forward. And in April, Wisconsin is going to have $20.5 million to be able to directly pay players across all sports. And so Marcus has really been instrumental in helping to develop that plan. And so I think it's a good move, certainly for Marcus, but also for Wisconsin, because he's got experience in both of these worlds. He's been at UCF, he's been at Arkansas, he's been at Baylor, and he also spent a couple seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles. And he has experience. Like, he told me he would be the guy who was calling free agents in the 5th round who weren't sure whether they were going to be drafted, or potential free agents, trying to convince them in that very short talk why the Eagles were a good fit for him. Or he would be going to colleges and talking to people about the players that may end up on the Eagles roster. So I think it's really unique to get a guy like this who's already here. And obviously Chris McIntosh hired him in a different role, but who has been in both worlds, both the pro and the college level. And in terms of what his responsibilities and what the GM role is, it's ever evolving. And it's an answer that we're not necessarily going to know now, even if they have a plan of attack going in.
Right. It feels like a pretty big step away from what Max was, though, right?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference, obviously, is as we knew Max, and as he came up through Wisconsin, it was relationship building with recruits, and he, as we know and we've talked about, was outstanding with that. And when you become a GM, and Luke talked about this when we discussed this at Big Ten Media Days in July, you have to remove yourself from that a little bit, because now all of a sudden you're dealing with money, and that's not about how good of a relationship or what kind of friendship you developed in a recruiting trail. It's cold hard cash, or straight cash, homie, as they say. Like, you have a budget, an operating budget, and I think that takes a different type of personality in person. And so it's a different job, no doubt about it, to what it is like when you're recruiting. And I should also say the plan here is to hire somebody else to assist with recruiting. Though Pat Lambert is going to handle the high school recruiting, there's also going to be a liaison of some sort to help with recruiting, but also deal with the GM, maybe sort of an assistant GM type of role, but a player personnel member that's going to come in as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's obviously still some things to how it's all going to look and how it's all going to play out. Still very much flexible, and it needs to be flexible because college athletics is ever changing, and you need to have that flexible ability with him. He also did handle aspects of contracts, correct?
So that
Never-
I don't
Okay.
really know how in the weeds they got with that. Like, it's my understanding that Max was the one who was dealing with a lot of the contract stuff, but that part I'm not sure of. I think it was mostly like implementing some of this revenue sharing stuff.
Okay. All right. Again, it's a new role, relatively new role, because obviously Max had just taken it on a little bit ago, and it is something that as I said, I think they're probably still figuring everything out a little bit, but he definitely does know the program, been around it for several years now, and we'll see exactly how that role evolves over time as college football continues to evolve. But all right, let's jump into our interview with Billy Edwards Jr. Sat down with him for about 25 minutes and discussed his time so far here at Wisconsin. And we do welcome in the newest, or I should say one of the newest Wisconsin quarterbacks. It is Billy Edwards Jr. Billy, appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me on.
He's coming over from Maryland. You entered the transfer portal, and I guess my first question is, what was Wisconsin's pitch to get you to come here? And I know NIL plays a role in some things, but what was their pitch?
Yeah, I think it was really good timing. I think Coach Grimes maybe got hired officially right to the public a couple of days before I entered. So obviously, I think it was kind of good timing on that stance, to where they already had, the picture for what their offense and their offensive identity was going to be in 2025. And then kind of, they were the picture was able to be a little bit clearer for me in terms of what they, were envisioning for the offense, and kind of what we were going to be built on, what our scheme was going to be, and who we wanted to come in and run it, and what pieces kind of we already had here. So that was probably the main thing of just I had obviously said what I was looking for, going somewhere for my fifth year, for my last year, wanting to be pushed, be challenged, and be put in an environment to where I feel like I could make myself grow while also kind of bringing the people around me with me. And being put in an offensive system to where I felt like I could, be able to do that and be successful as a whole. So really with, the conversation with Coach Grimes obviously was very offensive like, of, what the scheme is, and here's how, from what I've watched on your tape, you fit in, and how, we will utilize your strengths to the system, and kind of what the system is built upon. And then with Coach Rickle, the big thing that, we still continue to talk about, obviously, right, having been here a month and a half, is the leadership aspect of, obviously coming into a new place. The landscape of college football is different now. There's a lot more moving pieces and parts every year. I think we got like 31 new guys, right in here now with the transfers and the mid-years. But just coming to a new place and establishing myself as a leader, and obviously, kind of him already had been here 2 years, knowing kind of what, the team and the offense especially needed, in a quarterback and a leader on that side of the ball. So those were kind of the two biggest things that I think all are, I use the word a lot when I was in the portal, and especially with Coach Grimes, Coach Fickle, alignment, where all our visions kind of aligned. And I felt like it was a perfect fit. So those were, that was the majority of what, my conversations with both those two were. And it was a lot of conversations, but I didn't think it took, much time for me. Obviously, once I got in the portal and I was able to talk to a bunch of these schools and have these conversations where I felt like it was, it was the right fit and the best fit for me.
Wisconsin fans are going to learn a lot more about you when they see you take the field in the fall, but how would you describe yourself as a quarterback and the traits you are bringing to this program?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing for me, I've always, tried to pride myself in my preparation and making sure, Coach Guyton has a phrase here that, that he's been using that I've liked is winning the game mentally, really being a student of the game, kind of knowing, what to do, when to do it, whether that's a thing for me or a check for the offense, a play as a whole. And then really, obviously, last year being my full-time year as a starter, I'm a tough quarterback and whether it's getting my nose dirty, standing there, taking a hit, I really feel like I kind of, I'm not Lamar Jackson where I'm gonna beat guys with speed, but I feel like I have enough, multiplicity in my game and diversity in my game to where I can tuck the ball down and get dirty when we need to, whether that's running through the tackles or out on the edge, and when the play will break down, but really just managing the game and getting the guys in the right spots. Obviously I've been here a month and a half, and it wasn't even from watching some of last year's tape. It wasn't very. It didn't take very long to realize, again, right, the skill players and the people around me are a lot more, special than me. So my job, as a quarterback is just to get the balls in, Vinny Anthony, a lot of the transfers brought in. We got a great running back room that is, extremely deep with, second-year guys all the way to fourth, fifth-year older guys. So really just, making my job easy and knowing that my job is just to get us in the right play, get us in the right look, and then get the ball in their hands, whether that, that could be handing the ball off, that could be throwing a 5-yard swing route, or that could be taking the top off and throwing a post, Jaden Ballard or Vinny Anthony, whoever you want to throw out there with the deep receiver room that I feel we have. But really just managing the game. And when I feel like my playmaking ability will come in and has to be used, then I feel like I have, a handful of tools that, that I can use and be successful on, in the run game and when the first play will break down. But definitely tough, smart, and just a student of the game that's, gonna kind of do whatever's asked of me and then some with, my legs in the run game.
This is, as you mentioned, there's a lot of movement in college football. People are coming and going all the time. Wisconsin's had one-year transfer quarterbacks the last 2 years. It hasn't necessarily gone exactly the way wanted to. It obviously injury plays a role in it, but why do you think it's going to be different for you?
Yeah, I think obviously, right, I can sit here and give you an answer that is, solely about me and kind of what I can bring to the table. But I really do think, like I said, one of the biggest, pieces for me when coming here was Coach Grimes and his offensive system and what he's bringing. I think the marrying and the meshing between what was already here and, a really good offensive line and some good pieces out on the edge, tight ends, running backs, and then what I can bring to the table with what Coach Grimes wants to do. I think, we have a lot of the right pieces already in place, already were in place here before I came here. And then you enter, Coach Grimes into the equation and you add me. I think a lot of the right pieces are there. And I think, people have talked about it. Obviously, I don't think, I've been asked questions to this extent of we're trying to get back to what Wisconsin's known for, right? Of, running the football, the ability to run the football. And then as an offense, set everything else up, up off of that. And as a quarterback, nothing makes my job easier than the ability to run the ball and get the ball to running backs or tight ends, receivers and jet sweeps, however you want to do it. Because that just makes the defense, honor both. You're multidimensional, makes them honor the run. And then when we need to pass or we want to pass, obviously, it gets us in some better, more advantageous looks to throw the football. So I think it's a mixture of, with some of the pieces we brought in, transfer-wise outside of me, absolutely. And then Coach Grimes coming into place. I think, we're trying to get back to a different style of offense that maybe, hasn't been ran here in the past couple of years. But I know when I played Wisconsin in 2022, it was kind of what they were. We came here, obviously, when I was at Maryland, it was probably 40 degrees, raining and windy as heck. And they got an I formation and ran the ball all over us. So I think we're trying to get back to that. Kind of some of the, the fundamental principles that Wisconsin football is known for and was built on with the long winning history here. So I think there's a few puzzle pieces that have come into play that I think, give us a really, really good chance to be successful this year on the offense side.
Kenny Guyton was here last year, but this is his first season as the quarterback's coach. What's your relationship been like with him in the past month and a half? And are there certain areas that you feel like he's already helped you with?
Yeah, I think definitely, he's going to already, obviously we're in match drills, we're in winter workouts, kind of walk through things with the offense. And he's been, my biggest motivator, my biggest, pusher of trying to continue to motivate me to become a leader, to continue to motivate me to get the offense down, all things that, I feel like are pushing me in the right direction. I say, obviously only being here a short time, we already have a great relationship. He had individual meetings with us all, I think probably my first or second week here. So about a month ago. And in that meeting, knowing kind of just where I'm at in my career and where he's at in his coaching career and what, how our both our kind of stories and personalities and styles will mesh. Obviously, right, being an older guy going into my 5th year, played in 20 something games. I have experience. He played the position. He's called plays in Arkansas for a little. So there's a lot of pieces that come into play where I think we've from the jump have meshed very well. He is a jokester. He is, which obviously when you're in the film room, maybe not at this time of the year, but when he gets into those, fall camp, the season, when you're going to be, in the foxhole with those guys for 8+ hours a day, it obviously, it's good to have a relationship off the field or outside, the classroom where you can kind of have those jokes. And, we're good. I don't want to say friends, right? He's my coach and there's obviously that relationship, but we have a deeper, connection and relationship than just the football field, which I think, as a quarterback, I think that's vital, right? Obviously having that alignment, whether it's, it goes from me to Coach Guyton to Coach Grimes, all the way up to Coach Fickle, just making sure we're all on that, shared vision, and we're all kind of pulling each other and pushing each other in the right direction. So it's been fun. I think it was yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, he was showing us his clips from Ohio State. So, he likes to bring up himself a little bit from what he was able to do and stuff. So it's been good so far. I've enjoyed it a lot. And I just every day we kind of get more and more into football. I'm enjoying it more to where we can have those conversations to be like, hey, this is how I've read it. What is your thoughts or what's your coaching point on this? Like, how do where does your thoughts come into play? And, how do you want that to kind of alter how I'm thinking or is, what I've done, how we kind of want to roll with it. So it's been fun so far. I've enjoyed it a lot. And I know the quarterback room as a whole kind of feeds off the energy that he brings every day. So it'll make it easier when we're in there for, 6-7 hours a day here, probably in 3 or 4 months.
I don't mean to continue to bring up the past, but the last 2 guys that have come in here have had to establish themselves as leaders. You mentioned it before. Tanner was a little bit more vocal, but also was a worker. Tyler was strictly almost a worker, trying to get the trust of the team. What's your approach? What has been your approach here this first month and a half, trying to put your stamp and just trying to work yourself into it? I know there's so many other new guys, so maybe it's not as difficult as it may have been in the past.
Yeah, I think, I've always been a big believer, especially in college athletics, but college football, right? When you're on a team with, I think now the new number will be 105 or whatever the roster cut is, 120 guys. And really it's, in my mind, probably 250 because we have all these workers and all these people that, kind of bust their balls for us every day to kind of give us a chance to be successful. It's big on relationships for me, of just getting to know the people, getting to know them outside the football field, maybe obviously, right, getting to know their story and kind of why they're here or how long they've been here and what's brought them here, but really outside of it, because that's been the best thing for me is, the better relationships I have with these players outside of here, whether it's hanging out with them, playing Xbox with them, going out, going to get food, whatever it is. It makes it a lot easier, right? Football's a tough sport. Nothing really in here is easy. So when we do face the hard stuff, we have a deeper relationship, right? Kind of like I talked about with Coach Guyton, to where, they can get up my butt and I'm not going to get upset, or I can get up their butt and there won't be any hard feelings, because I think that's the one thing that jumped out me from, probably my second day here, first team meeting, is just the eagerness from everybody and the shared vision of, obviously they didn't have, or, we as in Wisconsin didn't have the season we wanted to last year, but where are we going with that? And there's with a new offense coordinator coming in, I think has helped me with the transition with, we're all learning the offense, right? I'm not coming here learning it by myself or with the handful of transfers and mid-years, but we're all kind of starting from square one. So that's been the big thing. And, Coach Brady and the strength staff, everyone, has done a good job of facilitating us getting outside of the facility and hanging out and trying to develop those relationships and those bonds, because it is, college football is a lot different now. You got 30 new people, like I said, and it's hard to maybe develop that trust and that kind of cohesiveness very fast in a group. But that's the landscape now. So we're navigating it as best as possible. And, we went bowling last week. there's surprisingly some really good bowlers in the receiver and running back room. Linemen, not so much, but, figuring that stuff out. So, you have kind of a deeper bond and deeper connection so that when, we are in team run and I got to get up Jake Renfro's butt about something, like it's not like it's my first time talking to him. So that's been the big thing for me is, I've talked about it with both my siblings that are, working collegiate athletics. I feel like if you're in a spot in an environment to where you like the people, then, you can pretty much do anything. You can work with that. If you have those, those strong relationships and stuff outside of, the actual field or court or whatever the sport is. So just try to do that with, pretty much every minute I get, every weekend I get to continue to go out and hang out with the guys and kind of dive in and on Madison, Wisconsin, and kind of some of the guys that have been here, for some guys have been here for 5 years and, figuring out what their story is and why they stayed here so long and what keeps them here and what, makes them Wisconsin or what makes them love Wisconsin so much. Cause I'm only here for 12 months and I'm really just trying to make the most of it, whether that's me individually with the city, the school, but definitely the guys and the relationships. Cause, some of these guys I'm sure, will end up in my wedding one day and we'll end up, we'll be 56-year-old retired guys on the golf course, probably shooting 20 over. But, that will only happen with, the investing of the relationships now.
Well, we got to know now who's the best bowler on the team and where you fall in line there. And are there some other things here in your first month or so that have stood out, activities or just seeing the town?
I'd say DD is a very good bowler. He hit a couple strikes. Tyrell Henry was big in the bowling. A lot of the receiver room, like Vinny Anthony, those guys were there. We were there. We probably had the lane till 8:30. They were there till I left at like 8:15. They were probably there past 8:30. But those are some of the guys that I saw, that could spin the ball and do all that. Not my kind of stuff. I'm more of a get the biggest, heaviest ball and go straight right for the right corner of the first pin and hopefully they all knock down. But I would probably say I fall pretty low in that list. But I think the biggest thing for me is just obviously, right, when I asked or when people, from back home had talked about kind of Madison as a whole, like, I heard nothing but great things. So really just trying to get around as best as possible, whether it's, the food, the local spots around here. Obviously, I ate here on my official visit at Nitty Gritty. I've been to Dottie's probably 4 or 5 times since, and really just see the place. Obviously I live, the capital is not far from campus and where I live and stuff. So that gives me a little bit of, Washington, D.C. kind of home vibes. So just being able to get around a little bit more and see it. And obviously it's cold here right now, which I'm continuing to get used to, but I'm definitely really looking forward to, the warmer times of the year where, I'll see the lake. I'll see kind of what, everything I've heard about from, the time I entered the portal and came here on my visit to now, kind of all entails. So I, just trying to make the most of it. I obviously know I'll only live here for 12 months, but trying to make, kind of my roots here a little bit deeper so that, I'll have an excuse to come back here in, 5-10 years and I'll have some fun when I do so.
So you guys obviously been in winter workouts, but you've also been into throwing with guys, right? Like you've been going through those type of things as well. Is there anybody that has been standing out to you so far? I think we know that Vinny Anthony had a breakout year last year. We know that Tretch Kekahuna is obviously going to be a part of this as well. But are there some other guys that have stood out to you so far?
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to keep it without saying everyone, right? I think Mark Hamper's has made some good strides. Obviously, a lot of guys from the portal and everyone were coming back from season. So coming here again fully healthy. Mark Hamper, I think Eugene Hilton is high on my list. Young kid and is very mature for his age and has, obviously all the physical tools, but, mentally I think is very strong, kind of up there in the head in terms of his work ethic and stuff. Obviously Jane Ballard, I think he hits like 22.9 miles per hour every time we run and whatnot. So the more we've gotten to throw and the more comfortable we get being able to see him kind of open up and obviously all of us get more, comfortable in terms of timing and just the installation of the offense, the more routes that come up, kind of just seeing everybody, for who they are as a player without the pads, which obviously, is a little bit different. There's one more I'm forgetting that I think the tight ends, Jackson Aker was a big one that, probably when I came here, I didn't think was, maybe as athletic and versatile as he was. Tucker Ashcraft, Tanner Kuziel, there's a lot of guys. Obviously, you didn't say his name, but Tretch, that kid, I mean, we were watching film today after the walkthrough, and I was like, dude, you run around like, if you've ever seen the memes of Kyler Murray, the little, like a baby stealing candy from a candy store, like,
yeah,
that guy moves well. So I think we have a lot more talent than maybe, people may think of in terms of the receiver room and the skill, from running backs, tight ends, receivers. I think there's a lot of guys that, I think physically have it all. And then, mentally, when we get the playbook down, I think we'll have a lot of guys that are playable and that, can do some really, really good things, whether it's taking the tops off defenses or, jet sweeps. We have a lot more athleticism here than I think people may give us respect for and whatnot. So it's been fun. I was talking about with Coach Grimes this weekend of just continuing to install the offense. And then as a new install comes in and we get new routes and new concepts and whatnot, being able to throw with them. We throw 3 times a week, being able to do that, in routes 3 times a week, just continue to get more comfortable with each other, which, when I was talking today, I think all that stuff will pay dividends for us when we finally get to, put a helmet on and do spring ball and just continue to get more comfortable, because that, cohesiveness and being on the same page and timing, that way I know how they run routes. They know, how I'm throwing it or where I want them. All that stuff will pay off, obviously later down the line, but we got to continue to just, chip away at it now and continue to take the strides, every day, even though it may be February 18th. There's a lot more stuff we can just continue to do and chip away at. So it's been fun. I'm obviously nowhere when we do the speed testing, Coach Brady. I'm nowhere on that list with some of the guys in the skill position we have, but I don't have a problem with that as long as they catch the balls for me and I give them a good ball. Then I think we'll both be happy with it.
Billy, even though you've only been here a month plus, you are the leader of this quarterback room, and it's a totally overhauled room. What is your approach to leading a room like this, and what have your impressions been of both Danny and Carter, who came here this offseason as well?
Yeah, obviously, right. I don't think there were a million different things in my head when making the decision to come here in the portal, with how hectic that was and stuff. But when I got here and I kind of realized, like, second year, mid-year, fifth year, and obviously Danny, played a full year, has, a lot of experience from San Diego State. It definitely kind of made me a little bit more excited. Just obviously when I look back to my freshman year, or even, first, second year when I was a younger player, some of the guys that I had to look up to of just about the process and kind of how they went about their business, both on and off the field. I owe a lot of the success I've had up until this point to them. Sam Hartman, I mentioned Mitch Griffiths. He was, he's one of the, I've known him since high school, and he was the backup when I was at Wake Forest. He was, one of the hardest workers I've ever been around. And, obviously going to Maryland and being behind Talia for 2 years, I was able to kind of learn a lot of different things from each one of those guys and kind of take it into my own toolbox as I saw fit. So being able to pour back into them, obviously Carter just got here probably a month ago, and sometimes he's running around like a deer in headlights, but it reminds me of me when I was, 18 years old at Wake Forest, going through my first match drills and kind of what, just trying to give him little, pointers to help him out, because, it's a long quarterback is a tough position, obviously, and only one plays. So, everyone's kind of path and journey is different. So just helping him out whenever I can, whether it's, going through the install. I think it'd be tomorrow, probably 2 times a week, all of us are up in there going over the install together, going over the script, getting ready for the next walkthrough day. That way, one, we all know individually we're good, but as a room, as a whole, I think Coach Guyton has kind of instilled that in us very fast, of making sure that, we're the standard and we're leading the guys and we're on our A game, because we can't push the rest of the guys and hold everyone else accountable if we're not kind of on our stuff. So really just the group together as a whole is already very close. We're already, like I said, we're all learning the offense together. So relying on each other. And then obviously too, right, me and Dandy having some game experience in film. Sometimes I'll be talking so fast in film, asking Coach Guyton questions, and Carter's like, you got to slow down. Like, I don't know what you're saying. So, stuff like that, when I get the opportunity to kind of break down, stuff to him, dumb it down, knowing that, as time goes on and the more work that he continues to put in, like it'll click for him. And even with Danny too, the experience and wisdom from 3 more years of college football, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I can pour back into him. So I try not to do too much, obviously, just because, I'm much older. I'm not trying to be the teacher in the room, but, however I can help those guys, I think, like I said, I was very lucky and blessed to kind of, be brought up with some of the older guys, whether they were starters or backups above me. So, definitely the opportunity to pour back into them, leaving this place better than I found it. That way, when I leave here in 11 months, any one of those guys in the room will be ready to step into the shoes and get the keys to the car and feel confident doing it.
So it is entering the third year of Luke Fickell's tenure. First 2 years haven't been exactly what everybody was expecting. We asked Coach Grimes about this a couple weeks ago, whether he felt more pressure because of what's happened the last couple of years, whether he feels pressure to get the offense back to where it is or where everybody wants it to be. Do you feel any added pressure, or is it just this is just another it's not just another year because it's your last year, but does it feel any different than some of the past years for you?
Yeah, I actually saw that clip, and I love this answer in the sense of I feel like for me, really ever since I was a freshman, I feel like, whether I came to it on my own or I saw other people do it, I've really tried to approach everything the same, in terms of not making a game too big or, not getting, bored with the details in February when, we're not playing a game for 5-6 more months to where it could get boring or, repetitive. But no, I wouldn't say too much, pressure. I think if you want to use the word pressure, I think it's good pressure, right? Obviously I put pressure myself knowing that, I'm coming here, I'm in my last season. And I've always put pressure on myself. I think that's, probably one of my biggest motivators in terms of I have a lot of people relying on me inside the building. Obviously there's a lot of eyes on, the offense as a whole with a new OC, as me as a whole, coming in as a new, 1-year quarterback, and the program as a whole, which, pressure is a privilege, as you guys have heard multiple times. But I wouldn't say it's too much pressure. I think that's the exciting part about it is the challenge of, obviously new, right? I was very comfortable at Maryland. I'd been there 3 seasons. I knew the offense like the back of my hand. I could, pretty much there weren't too many looks, that I got last season where I really didn't have answers to kind of already checked into the play. So kind of for me, it was about getting outside my comfort zone and going somewhere where I would be pushed and challenged. And, maybe felt that outside pressure or had that outside attention that, not everyone would want. But I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. Like I don't lose sleep about it at night, but every time I wake up, it's, it's the excitement part of, I already have 4 binders of the 9, almost 10 installs we've done with the notes and the walkthrough drawings and, the post walkthrough notes and all that stuff. Cause that's kind of what motivates me and more internally, right? That knowing that I'm coming in here and there's a lot of guys within the facility, whether it's players, coaches, dining hall members, whoever is, within the facility is, really for me, the opinions that matter. They're all relying on me. And that's kind of the motivating factor for me, not any negative pressure or anything like that. I think it's what makes it fun. Obviously having played quarterback and started a lot of games in my college career, like you kind of get, whether you want to or not, you get used to being in that spotlight. And I've just tried to, embrace it throughout my career and take, every necessary step, whether it's in February or it's, in October and we're in the brunt of the season. So I don't think it's any negative thing. I think it's fun. I think, I've tried to embrace all the new stuff, all the new plays, the new things I've had to do as a quarterback, the living in a new place, new strength program, like everything I've just tried to embrace. And, it's definitely exciting coming here. It's, a little bit of a refreshing feeling, being in my 5th year and being somewhere new, having been somewhere for 3 years straight and kind of figured out, pretty much everything there that, there was. I'm excited about it. I really am in terms of everything, whether it's the workouts and going through new stuff that's hard or, what we have coming down the road in the summer and the season. It's been fun and one that, like I said, doesn't keep me up at night, but gets me out of bed in the morning, if that makes sense, and gets me motivated to kind of go attack the day and do what I have to do to get a little bit better that day.
All right. Hey, Billy, really appreciate your time. Kept you a little bit longer than we said we would, but we do appreciate it and looking forward to seeing you in that new offense come spring.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys.
All right. There he was. Billy Edwards Jr. Really appreciate his time. And again, some of the stuff that he said is not going to be like earth-shattering, but I did enjoy talking to him, and several things obviously stood out in why he chose Wisconsin and some of the stuff that he's going to be asked to do that maybe he wasn't asked to do at Maryland. And he is a different type of personality than the last 2 guys for sure.
Well, you can tell he's been answering questions for a long, long time. And he gives, honestly, I remember, I thought this when I talked to him after he transferred, probably the most expansive responses of any player I can remember. And that's great because it gives a side of his personality and his thoughtfulness, and explanations for pretty much everything. So yeah, definitely enjoyed talking to him, and hopefully we'll enjoy talking to him next season as well.
What are your expectations for him? And have they been, I don't know, limited or taken down a notch just because of what has happened in the past?
Yeah, I think the level of excitement that came with the arrival of Tanner Mordecai in subsequent years have decreased because of what has happened. And this is not Billy's fault, right? He wasn't here the last 2 years. He was at Maryland. He was a starting quarterback in the Big Ten a year ago. But I think when you see that Wisconsin is under 500 in 2 years, the last 2 full seasons under Luke, and there have been injury issues, I think the tendency is, and I don't want to speak for all fans, but I think we get a sense of what the feeling can be is it's another player who's coming in for just 1 year, and it hasn't worked out the last 2 years. But I also think that does a disservice to what Billy can provide. Statistically, he got off to a great start last year. I know Maryland didn't have the best offensive line, didn't provide him with a lot of great protection. And I think if he can do the things he did well there with a better offensive line and run game, and a new offense that frankly fits what Wisconsin has been about for a long time, they've got a chance to be successful. Now, the big barrier, of course, is that schedule, but I don't want to talk about that for the next 8 months, even though we know that it's out there. But certainly this is an opportunity that he's embracing, and it seems like the type of personality that you need to try and lead and potentially elevate a program.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the schedule, but then it's like,
what is there to say? It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. What are you going to do? Right. It's an absolute bear. It's not what, yeah. But him mentioning the Maryland game a couple years ago did remind me of how crappy the weather was that day. And I think I've never seen a quarterback want to be in a place less than Talia wanted to be on that field that day. It was raining. It was windy. And they ran the hurry up and spread so it was one of the fastest offenses in the country. And it was miserable because they went 3 and out almost every single time. It was a really, really tough day for that Maryland offense. Again, Wisconsin's defense was pretty darn good in 2020. Was it 22? I think it was 22, right? They were okay in 22.
21.
Was it the Maryland game was in 21?
Well, 21 was when they had the
all the good players. Yeah.
The records. 22, obviously, if you fire your coach, things aren't going too well.
Right, but I'm trying to think of he said 22, so I'll take him.
Yeah.
His word. So that defense wasn't as good as the one previous, but that weather was just impossible to overcome. I want to say that was the same day that Ohio State went down to Northwestern, and it was even worse down there. The wind was blowing who's the quarterback for them? He's now with the Texans.
CJ Stroud.
Yeah, CJ Stroud just looked absolutely lost. Weather's going to do that, but I'm looking forward to
they don't play in February, because waking up and seeing it's feels like minus 25 out. Just it takes a little bit of your soul away.
You didn't enjoy that today?
When it feels like your face is going to fall off simply by walking outside, it makes me question my life choices. But July rolls around, you're on the terrace, and life is good again.
Yeah, or you're sitting in a hot press box in Platteville.
There is that, but that's August. I'm talking about July. June and July, you got to live it up.
Okay, all right, I got you. But no, I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like. I'm not as interested as I was 2 years ago to see what it was going to look like, but I am anxious to see exactly how this is all going to fit together. Some of the guys that he mentioned, Jaden Ballard running 22 plus miles an hour athletically, that you like to hear that. Again, it's January and there's nobody, or it's February and there's nobody trying to knock your head off, but that's exciting. And obviously we know what Vinny Anthony can do, and Trech Kahuna, and him mentioning Mark Camper as well, I think is a guy that we had talked about just because of his productivity, even though, and I know you talked to him, but his productivity is just off the charts as a freshman last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
They got some pieces to work with, and that's at least a good start.
Yes, they do. All right. Well, we are planning to be back here later this week, talk about some other things that are happening, and hopefully we'll do that. Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, there he is. Jesse Temple from The Athletic. You've been listening to The Camp.